There's a massive battle brewing over the future of nonstick cookware. Hi, I'm Jed, this is Cook Culture. So before we get into this story about nonstick cookware and the battle that is brewing, I want to be really clear that people that know this channel know that I have a clear bias towards traditional cookware, that is uncoated cookware. But in this story, it is all based on facts and science and legal information, and it is really just a clear understanding of where we are today and what's going forward. And I am trying to deliver this to you in an impartial way and doing my very, very best. So you be the judge if I can do that or not. So everybody's heard about something bad about the chemicals in nonstick cookware. There's been countless articles that have been written about nonstick cookware, about the chemicals, and there's even been a movie, a large Hollywood movie made about the chemicals and the story around the chemicals in nonstick cookware. We're talking about PFAS chemicals here. PFAS is a synonym for polyfluoroalkyl substances. And this is a group of chemicals that have used as a slick sort of addition to many different industries all around the world. So there's a huge amount to this story, but let's get right to the punchline. PFAS, and more specifically PFOA type chemicals, that is one of the chemicals within the family of PFAS chemicals, have been proven to increase the risk of some cancers, including prostate, kidney, and testicular cancer, ball cancer, reduce the ability of the body's immune system to fight infections, including reduce vaccine response, interfere with the body's natural hormones, and increase cholesterol levels and or the risk of obesity. This is a proven fact of the PFOA chemicals that have been used previously in nonstick cookware. These are the proven effects of PFAS chemicals, and they were proven by a ridiculous amount of research that was done on human subjects that is really never done when they're testing chemicals, but this had already been exposure of humans, and this was paid for by the chemical companies over a long period of time, and that produced definitive response or research or evidence that proved what I had already stated about these PFAS chemicals. So this is the whole story, this how this happened and how the research was done and why it was done and who paid for it. That's a whole story that we're not covering today. When this research was first published, when this research was made available for the reason of why it was made, this was crushing for DuPont, and which is also now Chemours. Chemours is the spin-off of DuPont that happened specifically because of this information that came out. So chemical companies like DuPont have been now forced to pay billions of dollars in civil claim action, and they have been forced to clean up contaminated sites that were contaminated for decades, and they have been forced to provide clean drinking water in many different communities. When all of this research and information was published, it became clear that the chemical companies had known for decades the effects of the PFOA chemicals on their workers and on the local population and the wildlife in that local population. When this came to a point where it was unequivocal, the chemical companies, specifically DuPont, pivoted quickly and came out with a new chemical called Generation X, which has an acronym of, I said synonym earlier, it's an acronym, of PTFE. So the new Generation X nonstick is a PTFE chemical. The previous chemical, the PFAS chemicals, you may have heard of them called forever chemicals, because once they get into our environment or into your body, they don't break down within your lifetime. They don't break down for a long period of time. They're basically a forever type of chemical in their structure. But the new and improved Generation X chemical is a shorter molecule, and so it breaks down in half the time. So instead of it lasting for 1,000 years, it'll break down in 500 years. But the marketing win for the new PTFE Generation X chemical is that it's a larger molecule, and when it's ingested by animals, humans, it doesn't get taken up through the digestive system. It is too large to pass through the gut lining. And so the research has shown that PTFE that you get directly from cookware or other things in its kind of form that's made into PTFE can be digested directly through you. So during this entire time that went on for decades of investigation and then the civil action against the chemical companies, the American government specifically, generally, was standing by and watching. The EPA, who is supposed to be regulating these sorts of things, has been accused of being complacent and even in some way colluding with the chemical companies. This is an accusation that hasn't been proven, and I'm just saying what I've read and passing on information. I am in no way educated or smart enough to know the fine details of the way that these upper echelons of the American civil society, civil service works. But when you read about the way in which this kind of story unfolded, there was a long period of time which information was available and it was there, but it wasn't acted upon. However, as of late, the EPA has made some pretty drastic changes, and the effect of what is now known is being implied, and there is change that is being happening on a governmental level. What we're talking about today is the legal level in which is being applied by law, by state, and here within all of Canada. So the human suffering and the outcry has been intense. Based on the research and the fact that has come out of the way in which the chemical companies behaved, the information in which they knew of, the chemicals in which they made, the chemicals in which they dumped into environments, and the way in which they have so widely poisoned the environment, you can imagine that the pressure upon politicians to do something about this has become more and more intense from constituents. So this is where we're at, is that it is some states are a little bit further ahead, but there's a lot of proposal now for some pretty radical laws to come up to regulate the entire body, all of the chemicals within the PFAS family. So in many states, red and blue, this is not a partisan issue. Chemical factories have been in all different types of states, and people have been poisoned in all different types of states, red or blue. So this is not a partisan issue in the American space. And in Canada, this has just more generally affected the entire population. We don't have the same manufacturing facilities that they have in the US. And so we don't have it so acutely where we have had centers of massive contamination. But there is definitely an issue within all of the country that I live in. But in the US and Canada, the proposed legislation is to heavily limit, restrict, or completely ban the use of PFAS chemicals in anything that is deemed unnecessary. So that means that in any industry outside of military applications or medical applications, you would have to have some extraordinary reason why you would need to be able to use PFAS going forward. So here's where we get to the issue. The PTFE industry, the non-stick industry in the world, is worth billions. And in the past, history, what has it shown us when industries that are worth billions get threatened? So two of the largest sellers of PTFE-based cookware have just started a new group, a lobbying group. This is called the Cookware Sustainability Alliance. This is made up of Meyer Cookware and Groupe Seb Cookware. That's a French-owned company that operate companies like Tefal and Allclad. So if history has taught us anything, when large industries like this are threatened, we are going to see an offensive campaign. So we are going to start to see as much information pumped into the marketplace as possible to try to lobby us, general population of purchasers, and people making decisions in government. So as I said before, there is research that has been done, testing that's been done, that shows that the new style Generation X PTFE doesn't uptake into bodies, get into your blood through the digestion system. And this is what the industry is kind of hanging its hat on to kind of say, hey, everything's fine now. This isn't as bad as it was before. But here's the counter argument that you'll also hear. There are a few fairly well-funded organizations, American-based organizations, that will be running the counter story to this. And this is the story that you will hear from them. PFAS chemicals are thought to be in now every person on the planet. PFAS chemicals have also been found in polar bears in the Arctic. Science and research supports the theory that long-term exposure to PFAS chemicals could have detrimental effects to the entire human population. It's an overwhelming problem, And the only way to really combat this problem is to heavily reduce or to eliminate the use of PFAS chemicals. So the simple message in response is that these chemicals are not well understood. The chemicals that are very well understood create cancers and make people sick. So the simple story is that the PFAS chemicals that are being made today aren't very well understood and continue to be made and continue to be produced and continue to get into the environment in many different ways. To get into the niche way of saying, hey, when we create PTFE in this one way and sell it in this one way, it's not going to hurt you, while the house is burning all the way around is what their point of view is, it creates no benefit. There's no win there. There's the massive problem of 99% isn't being fixed by the 1%, if it even is a fix. Like, nobody really has good definitive information. And so the argument is, why does this need to be used? Alternatives can be found, and that's being proven all the time. So why do companies like the Cookware Sustainability Alliance, why do they have to fight to keep nonstick when alternatives should be found and science should continue to progress to find better ways forward? And eliminating all PFAS isn't going to hurt anyone. All it's going to do is hurt profits for corporations. And that's their argument, right? And so that's the left and the right of that. So it seems that some of the companies in my industry are on their back foot, and they are now on the offense, trying to position themselves for the future. And they are hoping to be able to market to us all that they still are relevant and that they have a place in our kitchens and that we should be buying what they have to sell and that what they're selling is harmless to us. But I'll leave that decision for you. So any comments, any questions, please throw them below. Thank you very much.